Hello. Hi, everybody. Fabi here from Fabi English. How are you all? Welcome to another Exploring IELTS with Fabi. Okay. And every week, okay, we meet sometimes once, sometimes twice, okay, to talk about everything related to the IELTS test. Okay, and anything and everything that will help you get the score you need by doing the test only once. Okay. So, yeah, my name is Fabiana, but you can call me Fabi. I'm an English teacher. I work at universities and English colleges here in Brisbane, Australia. And what I do best is help people get the score they need on the IELTS test, all right? And what I'd like to talk to you guys about today is something that I see quite often, okay? And sometimes people who are really keen, and really trying to get the score they need, one thing that they do, which is great, is practice. Okay, and I'm always talking about practice, how important practicing is. But sometimes, okay, when we practice, we might get a low score. Okay, so I always tell my students to keep track of their scores. Okay, keep track of what they're doing. And that's very important, okay, and we should all be doing that, and then you can see exactly where you are. But sometimes we do one test and then we get a low score. Let's say you were always getting, I don't know, let's say listening, you're always getting 30 points, 28, 32, and then one day you get 20, which would be like a 5.56 on the IELTS test. Okay, so when you get a score that is much lower than what you used to, what usually happens is people lose motivation. Okay, I get a lot of students telling me, oh, Fabi, this wasn't a good one. Okay, but what I always try to do is to get students to use that to their own advantage. And how do you do that? I'm gonna tell you today. All right, cool. So let's get started. Okay, so guys, when we're practicing, okay, so today actually we're gonna focus more on reading and listening. Okay, so when we're practicing, okay, one thing that happens is our scores always fluctuate. Okay, sometimes you're gonna get a higher score, sometimes you're gonna get a lower score, which is fine. Okay, if it changes from, like, let's say from 10 points difference, then it's a big deal. Okay, but if it's like 5 points, I don't think it's that bad. All right, so if you are getting, let's say 20, 25, or 35, 30, 30, 35, don't worry too much. Okay, but if you get a really low score, okay, that should be investigated. Okay, and that's when I say that maybe getting a bad score will actually help you. But how? Okay, so before I tell you how it can help you, when you get a really low score, you have to check out why. Why was my score low? Okay, so the first thing I ask my students is, how were you feeling on the day that you did that test? Okay, so maybe you did a listening test that wasn't very good, and then, or you did a reading one that wasn't very good. Okay, so if you go ahead and you try to think about why in the world was it so low? Okay, so if you try to investigate that, the first question I ask, how are you feeling? Okay, because usually if you're practicing for the IELTS test and you get a score that wasn't very good, maybe that just happened because you were tired. Okay, and then I get students say, oh yeah, I did this one at midnight. You're supposed to be sleeping, honestly. Okay, but then the person decided to do like a test before they went to bed, and then that wasn't a good idea. Okay, so the first thing when you get a lower score, a score lower than what you used to, first thing you think about is, how was I feeling? Okay, what time did I do it? All right, did something happen that day? They're a little bit distracted. Okay, are you a bit anxious? All right, maybe you did a second one just because maybe you got a really high score. You did one and you did well, and then you wanted to do another one because you thought you were like on a roll, and then you didn't get a good score. Maybe just because you're tired. And how do we fix that? Rest. So that's very easy to fix. Okay, so that's the first thing I ask my students. Okay, when they don't do very well on a test, how are you feeling? Sometimes you're just tired, and that's why I didn't get a good score. Okay, or a score lower than what you used to. Now let's say that you were feeling good. You didn't say, no, Fabi, I was feeling really good. I don't know why my score was so low. Okay. Usually, guys, when you get a lower score when it comes to reading and listening, okay, there are two possibilities. The first one, it's probably because the questions that were on that specific test, they were a bit difficult for you, or it was the topic. Okay, so when you do a score, okay, okay, so I have a message here. Okay, oh, I got a message in my inbox. Okay, I'll have a look. Thank you for that. All right, no worries. Okay, so yeah, so guys, so yeah, so if you have so sometimes the kinds of question that you get might be hard for you. Okay, so different people are good at different types of tests. Okay, guys, types of questions. Okay, like for example, I don't really like the ones that are multiple choice. They're not my favorite. I love the ones that have to write the words, you know. So maybe if I'm gonna do a test and I have lots of multiple choice, I'm not gonna do so well because that's what's hard for me. You see? So when you don't do really well, analyze that. What kind of questions did I have? Okay, let's talk about reading, okay? One that people struggle with is that summary, okay, or the matching of paragraphs. Let's say you had two of those. Who knows? You know? So that's something that might bring your score down. If you have a type of question that you're not very good at. If that's the problem, that's it. Oh yeah, so I didn't do this that well because there are lots of questions that I'm not very good at. There, problem fixed. Okay, so you know exactly why. Okay, and I'll tell you what to do with that information later. Okay, but then sometimes you say, no, the questions were fine. The problem was the topic. Okay, maybe you're not familiar with the topic. You know, sometimes there are topics that we're not familiar with and we can deal with new vocabulary, but sometimes topics are new for us and there are so many words we don't know. And then that might make it a little bit harder. Okay, guys, to get a higher score, let's say. Okay, so that's it. So when it comes to reading and listening, okay, if you get a score that is much lower than what you used to, stop and analyze it. How were you feeling? Were you tired? Were you a little bit anxious, a little bit stressed? Okay, no, I was fine. Cool. Now let's analyze it. Maybe it was the type of question. So there's one or two types of questions that you're not very good at. And then there were too many of them and you didn't get a good score because of that. Or maybe it was just the topic. Okay, maybe you don't like about topics of our environment, history. I've seen a lot of history recently. Yeah, you don't really like the topic. And sometimes they have sections of books. Okay, and if you're not used to that, that can be really hard. Then you know why. Okay, but now guys, even when we fail, it wasn't really fail, it was just a bad one, okay? But even when we get a score that wasn't the best, we can use that to our advantage. Okay, that's actually very good. It's not bad at all because then you can check your weaknesses. Okay, so if you don't do very well, analyze it. Okay, so sometimes I think it's a bit boring if you get everything right because you go, everything's right, so what? You know, kind of thing. But if you make mistakes, then you really explore it. Okay, so yeah, so the next thing you do is, let's say that you did notice that you were a little bit tired that day. Okay, so something you can do is choose the best time for you to do your practice. Okay, guys, because a practice will reflect on your test. Okay, so working on your practice will get you a better score. All right. So so think about it. Okay, oh no, I didn't do that well because actually I was very tired that day. Okay, so if that was the case, maybe try to practice at a time that you're feeling not feeling as tired, just so you can get a good score and that can keep you motivated. Okay, maybe that's not really your level. You just didn't do well because you're tired, but if you always practice when you're tired, you never really know your level. Okay, so try that, definitely. And let's say that you did notice that what got you was one specific type of question. Okay, now you know that that's your weakness. Okay, guys, now you know that every time you see that one, you have to pay extra attention. Okay, if it's the listening. Every time you see that one, the specific one in reading, you will know it will take you longer. So don't freak out, okay, if that takes a little bit long on that specific type of question, because you know it's your weakness, you know, so you're gonna look at it and say, oh my god, this one again, I have to keep matching things and I don't like this one. Yeah, so that will take you longer, okay, because what happens sometimes is hello, you're very welcome, Juan. You're very welcome. If you have any questions, guys, concerning reading and listening, you can pop the questions in there. All right. So yeah. So guys. So so sometimes what happens is some people, they get to a type of question that is a little bit more challenging for them, and that takes a little bit longer for them to get the answers. And people panic a little bit, especially if you're doing the real test. You panic. Oh my god, it's taking me too long, it's taking me too long. And then instead of maybe focusing a little bit more, you get really stressed and you can't perform. Okay, so that's why knowing the ones that you're good at and not so good at really, really help you during the test. If you know you're not very good at one specific type of question, when you see it, you think, oh my god, this one's gonna take me a little bit longer. Okay, so this attitude would definitely help you doing your practice and definitely on the day of the exam. Okay, guys, so if you have a lower score in your practice than what you usually get, if you do a test, get a lower score, investigate it. Okay, and if you feel there's just one specific type of question that you're not very good at, then maybe work on it. You can work on it and try to improve it, but sometimes there's just these ones that are really hard to improve. Just keep in mind that if you see that on the day of the test, that will take you longer. Okay, so don't panic if you feel a little bit stuck, because that one is the one that's going to get you stuck. But if you know that, it's completely different than if you're surprised by it. Okay, but then if you get a lower score and you notice that your problem was actually the topic, that your problem was the vocabulary that was in there, okay? Best thing you can do is just do some research, okay? I always say that the best way to make a list of vocabulary for the IELTS test is by using the text itself. I always work on that with my students, okay? So every time we do a reading test, we explore the test and we get some words from the text itself, okay? You can look up, you can Google list of words, list of common words in the IELTS test, okay? But guys, come on, honestly, just get the test itself and get the words from the test, get the vocabulary from the test, okay? Especially if you feel that you didn't perform well because of the vocabulary, okay? That's extremely important. All right, guys, just actually analyzing it, okay? And maybe going back to, even if it's a reading, okay, no, sorry, if it's a listening, if you have access to the script. This morning, actually, at the English college where I work, the topic was health, you know, health in parts of the body, accidents, and I felt that so students were going to do a listening and then like a speaking activity. And then I thought to myself, maybe I will deal with more vocabulary for them, okay? And then I got some books, and then I was like, oh, maybe I don't like the vocabulary that I have here. I don't think it's gonna help them. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna use that. Next thing I'm like, why don't I explore the listening itself? So it was actually pretty cool because we did the listening, right? So they did the activities and everyone was kind of happy with their results, you know. They got reasonable results, right? And then what happened was that then I gave them the script so they could read. Okay, everything they heard they could read, and they were like, oh my god, there were so many things I didn't hear. Okay, guys, so even when you're doing listening, okay, it's a great idea to go ahead and just try and look at the script. Okay, guys, the tape script, you know, so you can actually read it. Okay, don't do it before or while, do it after. Same thing with the reading. Okay, guys, always look up vocabulary after you finish, because remember, when you're doing the exam, your main goal is to answer questions, is not to learn vocabulary. You learn vocabulary later. Okay, and if you feel that you're struggling with vocabulary and vocabulary bring your score down every now and again, go ahead and practice that. All right, yeah, so now let's recap a little bit. So if you are practicing for the IELTS test and for some reason you actually didn't get a score, the score that you used to, your score was much lower, okay, and you feel like you're losing your motivation, okay, something you can always do is analyze it and use that low score to your advantage by checking how you felt on the day of the test, the practice, right? How did you feel? Then check what your problem was. Was your problem related to the type of question, or was your problem related to the topic itself? All right, okay, so I have some questions here. Where can you recommend a page where you can find mock tests? Yeah, okay, so I have been using with my students one which is IELTS.org. Okay, so I can look it up for you here right now. IELTS. Yeah, so online free test. Yeah, so you can try the British Council website. That's the one I have right here. Yeah, so it's the name of the website is takeielts.britishcouncil.org. Okay, here they have, if I'm not mistaken, 2 full tests that you can try. Okay, I might even maybe pop the link down here. Okay, so that's a very good one. Okay, it's free online. Okay, and it's kind of yeah, this one is like the paper one, but it's on the computer. You can do it online. Okay, but then you can always grab some materials. You're welcome. You can always grab materials. As you already know, this is my favorite book. This is my favorite book. Okay, so IELTS. Okay, the Cambridge ones, because these are the ones, guys, that I give my students to practice, and they do the test and they get the exact same score they were getting their practice, which is pretty good. And sometimes I give them maybe a listening from here, or a writing, or a speaking, and they go to the test and the question is very similar, if not exactly the same, very, very similar. Okay, so these ones are great for practice. Okay, guys, all right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Just be a little bit careful with what you find online. Okay, guys, some tests they are not very authentic. Some tests tend to be too easy and other ones a bit too hard. Okay, I personally don't like it when it's too easy or too hard, just because it's not really real. Okay, we're better stick to things that are more similar to the real test, so we know that when we're practicing at home, okay, we know our scores, and then when we go there we get the score that we're getting at home, at least, or better. All right, any other questions, guys, for me today? It's very hot in Brisbane today. Oh my god, like 32 degrees outside. All right, any questions? Okay, yeah, so I think we'll be back soon, okay, with more. So today we talked about how to deal with the fact that if you get a low score in your listening and reading, okay, how to deal with it in your practice. Okay, so you can definitely use that to your advantage. And the next one will be about speaking and writing. Okay, so let's say you do a speaking test and someone give you bad feedback, or you're practicing by yourself and you found that one was really hard. Things you can do to improve. Okie dokie. All right, I'm gonna go then. If no one has any more questions, no more questions. No questions. All right, okay. So yeah, so I'm gonna head out, but I'll let you know when it's all right. Excellent advice. No worries, Juan. No worries, no worries, guys. Yeah, and if you have some questions, as someone said that they send me a message, okay. I usually don't get the notifications from Instagram messaging, okay? So the best way to contact me definitely is by email. It's fabi@fabienglish.com. All right, guys, okay. So I'm gonna go, but if you have any questions, send me an email and I will answer them. All right, so see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.